The earliest memories I have of going to camp are when I was about 6 or 7 years old. My mom and dad put me on a bus with a friend, and we headed to West Texas to Camp Grady Spruce. It was a YMCA camp out on Possum Kingdom Lake. It was just typical camp. I remember riding horses, one of whom I thought was trying to kill me all week, and being a little afraid of that, but it was a great time. And we swam, had campfires, made s'mores. We took an overnight canoe trip down the Brazos River and got sunburns and mosquito bites, and there were cold showers all week long, only cold water, and we drank the Kool-Aid was called bug juice, and it was heaven. So I remember really coming together with kids from all kind of backgrounds, different races. The first kid I ever met who was had a different religion than I had was at that camp, and but for that week we were a tribe. When I was about 11 years old, a friend invited me to church camp, and so same thing. We went, rode horses, swam. I remember seeing my first zip line. There was a tower you would climb up, and you actually had to hang on over dry land until you got to the lake, and you could drop off into the water. That didn't last very long, I think. There it was also there that a guy named Brad did a real clear explanation of the gospel, and that's where I began following Christ. I plugged into a church home, was baptized, and began growing. That camp is where I met my lifelong friends that are still my friends to this day. I went to all kinds of camps. I went to summer camp, winter camp, sports camps, choir retreats. Just a great part of my growing up years. These are the experiences that kind of formed me into the decisions I made and the man I became. After my first year of college, I started working at a camp near my hometown called Mount Lebanon Baptist Encampment. And I did all the things that you did on summer staff. I lifeguarded, and I cleaned cabins and served meals and poured tea and cleaned up after all that, and refereed games and met just great friends and had good times there at camp. I was a musician, so they let me start helping out with music, and eventually let me start leading the music for camps. And there would be oftentimes 1,000 or 1,200 plus kids at camp, and so I learned to lead worship and to write songs and to do goofy skits and motions and all the stuff you do to get kids hyped up and help them have a good time. And also to repeat my story, just give clear explanations of the gospel and let them begin their own journeys with Christ if they decided to do that. And over the years, got to see thousands of kids repeat my story. So coming out of business school, I always thought, I wrote it down on a dreams list. If the Lord would ever allow, maybe one day I would start a camp and pass all the great times I had on to the next generation. I got out of college, went to seminary, started traveling around leading worship at camps, and in the meantime I learned to build a business. Hard way to make a living doing music at camp, so I always had a business. We started invested in real estate and doing the fixer-upper thing before there was fixer-upper, and buying old rent houses, fixing them up. In my 30s, Sarah and I were married. We had our first kids, and we were trying to decide where we were going to raise our family, and so we moved to Rockwall. I took a position at a great church there. It was so effective, full of great leaders and friends, and until 2003, that dreams list came back in mind when a ranch property came up for sale on the outskirts of town, and we started Sabine Creek Ranch. Now, there was not much here when we first arrived at Sabine Creek. It was very much like these open fields that you see behind me. No trees, this whole cotton land. And I always assumed I would start a camp someplace where there were mountains or huge trees and rivers or water. You don't get a lot of that in Royce City, Texas. But what we did have was proximity to the Metroplex. So we just started. We started meeting under a tent. We cooked out of a catering trailer a buddy of mine loaned me, and there was one large room in our house, and that was all that was here, a horse barn. And we did little horse camps. Started putting out call to churches and different groups to come and have retreats with us. I began selling houses and building cabins, and until I was out of houses, we had a camp. And it was modest, to say the least. It was a few years before we got a kitchen. Finally got to build a big metal building for our main meeting room, and we built benches and poured concrete and put in septic systems and water systems, pulled power, and we planted trees. We built our first couple of cabins, and we could hold about 130, and we just needed more space. We kept building cabins, until we could hold 300 or 350 people for overnight camps. Started doing day camps, and couldn't begin to list all the stories or the experiences, the seeing kids spread out over these grounds, having fun. For a few years, we've been trying to figure out what's next. Where does Sabine Creek go from here, and how does it continue to grow? How does it continue to thrive into the next generation? Back in December, a friend, a guy who's come to camp here and brought many kids here through the years, a local pastor, reached out and said, hey, would you consider selling the camp to us? And Sarah and I talked and thought and prayed about it long and hard, and agreed. And so in December, we signed a contract to sell Sabine Creek Ranch. Now, we haven't told a lot of people about that because the camp's still going with our same staff that we had, and Sarah and I are still involved, and we wanted this just to be a seamless transition, and we believe it will be. People have asked us, is this bittersweet? And certainly it is. We love this place. We have worked hard on it for 17 years and have gotten to see it grow to the place that it is today. At the same time, we're excited about the future here for Sabine Creek Ranch. If you look around here, you can see that there's already progress happening and remodeling happening and improvements and dirt turning. That makes my heart excited. So what is next for us? Many of you know that almost 7 years ago now, I actually started to teach at Dallas Baptist University. I began directing and building a camp. The recreation management degree program there is now in the College of Business. Firmly believe the Lord has me there for a reason as we prepare the next generation of emerging leaders to go and to repeat this story, to hear their dreams and their vision and their life stories. It's just as amazing. Hopefully I'll get to share some of those with you as well. And for Sarah and I, we moved next door. We will continue to ranch the way my family has done here in Texas for getting close to 200 years now. And our last child, Cole, just went off to school. And so we are definitely starting fresh and anew. We're excited about the days to come. You know, especially in these days, who knows if you have another day or another breath. But as long as we're here, we're going to try to make an impact. There's so many projects to pursue and things to build and lessons to teach and students to pour into. We'd love for you to be a part of that journey with us. Hope to be posting some good content here, and I hope you'll subscribe and click the little bell. We think there's a lot more great things coming around the bend. Thanks and God bless. Hey, crazy pigs. I'm trying to video here. Big fat lard.